Today I am painting an Impressionist painting for beginners, and my tutorial is just about to start, so grab some brushes, some paint, and a canvas and join me for some relaxing and creative time. Today we're creating this really cool Impressionism style painting of Audrey Hepburn. Hi, I'm Natalie, and on my channel you'll find painting tutorials and pastel tutorials, but more importantly, I created this channel to uplift and support women through art. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to my channel and hit the little bell so that you get my notifications. As always, you can look in the description below to find all the art material you'll be needing to create this painting. Okay, so before we start, I want to apologize because as I was filming, I cropped my image about an inch from the top. But basically, all you're missing is that line right here to complete this structure right here. I think you see the little dots. You see me do the little dots, which I use my ring finger to make. And as far as those trees, again, they're very like Impressionism trees. They're just like blobs of paint, really. So you see me start doing them from about here. They pretty much look consistent from top to bottom. So you just keep the same treatment on top here as you do here. Again, I apologize, but I didn't want to redo the video because it turned out pretty good, so I was happy with it. But leave a comment below and let me know if you would like me to give you more instructions or more tips to complete this painting. So your first step is to print your stencil, and the paints we're using are flesh tone. I have red, burnt sienna, black, yellow, white, and blue. I'm using my 3 brushes. You can look in the description for a little bit more about what I use. This is the carbon paper that you place underneath your piece of paper. It's your photocopy. I placed the image a little bit on the left, and you'll see that yours is a little bit different because I am giving you the trees and also the structure in the background. So with a regular red pen, just make sure to go over all your lines and press hard enough so that you have a good outline on your canvas. Remove your papers once you have all your lines transferred. Add some water to your tray and mix some white. Add a little bit of the burnt sienna. So it's actually brown, and we're creating the background color, which is a light beige. And I'm not mixing my paint entirely because I want some inconsistencies in the background. So I want some stripes. So I'm going back in my white to again get that inconsistency in the background. I don't want one opaque color. So this is what I'm doing right now with brush strokes going up and down, and I'm covering the entire canvas and going over my my guidelines because I can see them still. So I just dipped a little bit of my brush into the burnt sienna, the brown, because I wanted to give a little bit of the brown, a few brown brush strokes. Very thin. You can actually use your small brush to do that. And then you go over what you've applied to kind of smooth your surface. Again, I'm dipping my brush in just a tiny bit of brown paint and giving a few of those stripes. Now I'm using a Q-tip to remove some of the paint from her skin. So I'm just going to remove the paint from her face, neck, arms. Again, you can see that the image is a little bit different than what you have right now, because I did give you a glass of wine to trace and the trees. I'm dabbing my background with a paper towel just to help it dry, and also just to give it a little bit of texture. Now I'm mixing some blue into my brown. So I would say equal amount of blue, brown, and a little bit of red as well. So this gives me an eggplant, very dark eggplant color. So again, blue, brown, and red. I'm going to paint the dress. I switch my brush from my large brush to my small brush for the small area. As you can see, my dress is a little bit lighter, so I'm going to go over the paint. I'm going to apply 2 to 3 coats. I'm going to use the same color for her hair. I'm loosely applying very loose brush strokes for the hair. So I'm following my guidelines, filling up the hair or hairdo, leaving some white or some background color. So I'm not painting everything opaque. I'm leaving some white in between just to give more of a lighter effect. And it makes the hair have a little bit more shine, and it's a nice texture and layering. I'm doing the bangs with this small brush. I'm going to go over the hair with a darker color. Right now I'm doing the horizon line. And you can go over your guidelines. Again, I'm sorry I cropped about 1 inch from the top, but just follow your guidelines. And then do your arch. I'm using the same color as the dress, so it's your eggplant, dark eggplant color. I'm doing a little shadow at the base of the structure. I'm adding a little bit of water to my brush, and I'm just going to grab white and just fill in the structure in the back. It looks like a little bit of a, I don't know how you say it in English. It's the French l'Arc de Triomphe. I would have to look it up, but I kind of wanted to give that illusion that she's standing away from it, having a glass of wine. Just convenient. There's probably a cafe across the street. So I'm just filling this structure with white paint, leaving a little transparency because I did add some water in my paint. Now I'm going to add that white color to create like the light coming through the arch. I'm using very little paint. I don't want to use too much. As you can see, there's a little bit of the background color or the eggplant color showing through, and that's fine. We're kind of playing with this kind of background where there would be a little bit of wetness to the ground. So very thin paint. As you can see, I'm adding the background color now to the white and going back over it. I wouldn't want to use like pure white and just cover everything. This is kind of a transparency effect. So the water in your paint is giving you this transparency. Again, I'm adding a little bit of the dark and going back with some white over it. And I'm just dotting the paint with very loose brush strokes. As you can see, there's a little bit of blue left on my brush. That's an accident, but I liked it, so I continued with it. It looks like pavement or something. So add a little bit of of blue or very little, and then you just do those little rocks on the ground. Going back with some white, very loosely covering more of the background. I'm going back to my background color, back and forth to blend the two colors. Use your brush very loosely and dab some color on it. Now with the dark eggplant color, I'm just doing a little bit of the arch shadow and going back in the dress to darken her dress to make it more opaque. Also fixing some of those guidelines, just making everything more smooth. This is a very animated style where I outline everything. So I just outline the shoulder, just kind of going back over my dress again. Doing those trees with my medium brush, use that eggplant color and just go over the guidelines that you have on your piece of, on your traced, on your canvas. So you just trace the trees and just go over them with very loose brush strokes. Now I am mixing some of the eggplant with a little bit of the background color and adding red. I'm adding that to the left side of the trees, just dotting some color on the left side. Now I'm adding some of that red to the background color, and so it's I'm making that red 2 shades lighter. So basically I added some of the background color to the red I just put on the trees, and this gives me a color for the shadow of the trees. Now I'm adding that color to create shadows at the base of the structure, and then I go over it with white so that my color transitions well, and I give this shape of the arch on the ground, so it would create that reflection on the ground, just like the ground would be wet. And I'm just adding very freely, going back and forth, adding a little bit of white. So my color just is drying, so it kind of changes when it dries, so it's a little bit more purple now. I use the flesh tone that's right out of a tube. You could mix your own flesh tone with, you mix a little red with in yellow and add a little white, and that would be your flesh tone, but I just bought a flesh tone color. I'm adding the flesh tone to the left side of the face, the arms, the neck, and creating a hand where she'll be holding her glass of wine. Now I'm doing the hand that's holding her long cigarette with white, and then I go back to my flesh tone color to finish the arm. I kind of go back and forth with flesh tone and white. I'm making her pale. You're welcome to mix whatever flesh tone you want. You can make her skin tone a little warmer, a little bit darker. But Audrey Hepburn was always very often wearing a hat and sunglasses, so she didn't have a tan. I'm doing the shadow with the same color that I did the shadow of the trees and the arch, and I'm just adding a little bit of that color under her chin. Now I'm mixing a blue with a little bit of the pure blue and white, and I'm gonna paint half of her face blue. This gives you the impression of a shadow. You could also paint it, it's up to you. You could do a purple, you could do all flesh tone. You don't have to do half of her face blue. This is kind of a trademark that I have. This is something I do on a lot of my paintings, and I love it. I just think it's cool, and it's something I started to do in art school. It's something I just was playing with, and I liked it, so I kept that throughout my paintings. I'm adding that blue color on the trees on the left side, creating some interesting texturing on the trees. I'm doing the bangs a little bit darker. So to darken my color, I just added a little bit of black to my eggplant color. And I'm using that black color for the eyes and eyelashes. Now I'm outlining her face with very thin brush strokes. This is her cigarette holder. I'm tilting my canvas so it's easier for me to do the left eye. Very carefully, just covering my guidelines. And I'm going to add some eyelashes and finish the eyebrow. Just go over your guidelines, and you should end up with really nice results. I'm going to outline her ear. Keeping my brush very clean and pointy so I don't have too much paint, and finishing the round of her face, the hand. Make sure when you add some black that you remove the excess paint with a paper towel so you don't have a blob of paint at the end of your brush. You want to keep it nice and clean. Did a little shadow around her elbow, and I'm just outlining the rest of her arms. Here I'm doing a little bit of cheek, which I'll end up removing. Actually, I just thought it was a little much, but I think it looks okay. I like a little bit of a softer look. There's so many pictures of Audrey Hepburn online. She was a beautiful woman, smart, strong, generous, so talented. I love watching her movies. Here's my improvised hand. I love painting Impressionism because I don't have to make everything look like the real thing. Like, realism is not my thing. I do like to look at artists that do paintings that are like pictures, but that's not where I find my joy. So here's my little glass of wine. Again, I'm just painting it freehand. It wasn't there before. I just decided to add a glass of wine. Just thought it goes well with the long cigarette. I'm just adding red, the pure red, into the glass and painting the wine. I'm doing the lips. I'm carefully applying the paint inside my guidelines. I'm not applying the paint on top over the guideline, but inside, and then I'm meeting the guideline with my brush. Otherwise, I might end up with a little too much of a big lips, big pout. Now I just grab some white, and with my small brush, doing little dots to create earrings. Go back to the glass of wine, add a little shine in there. Also highlights in her hair. And I'm dabbing that color on the left side of the trees, going down onto the shadow for softer transitions and the effect of wetness. So now I'm going back to the my eggplant color with my small brush to create the shadow under the chin. It's kind of like a little triangle. Clean your brush, go back to white, and do some dots along her collar. And then I do brush strokes going out very swiftly and lifting up my brush so that it gives that little pointy look, and it looks like a cool necklace. You could do just pearls, that's fine too. I'm adding a little bit of white outlines. Little dots of white again in on the ground. I put yellow and red and did a dot to show that her cigarette is lit. I'm adding some white in the glass just to create more of a transparency. Doing the stem. I like how the glass ended up. That looks good. Now with my flesh tone, I went over the cheekbone. I thought it was a little too strong. So now I'm adding white to give some dimension. I'm not covering the whole flesh tone. I'm just adding a little bit of white. Going back to my darker color and making my hand a little bit more defined. You could put a little white line at the end of the cigarette holder. I kind of went straight from the holder to the fire. I forgot the cigarette. I might fix that later. So if you want to do that, you can add a little line of white at the end of her cigarette holder and then put the fire. I just realized that. All right, now I'm putting some yellow dots. I put some red dots in the earrings, yellow dots in the earrings, and now I created a little bit of orange because the yellow and red is giving me orange, and I'm just adding some lines, some brush strokes on my background just to give some color. adding a little bit more red to the trees, the shadows. I went back to my dark color, but I added a little bit of white just for the line of the nose. I didn't want it as dark. So it's basically your eggplant color with a little bit of flesh tone in it. And I'm just doing a tiny line for the nose, very small. You might want to make it a little lighter because you don't want it too defined. If it was 1 or 2 tone darker than the flesh tone, that would be fine. Adding more black in her eyes, making longer eyelashes on the other side as well. I'm adding a little bit of yellow on her cheek with my ring finger and doing a few, I'm going to be doing a few dots in the background with yellow and white. Now more of the white color and blue. So I just went from yellow, white, and blue dots with my ring finger. I don't put too many, but I think it gives me the feel of nighttime or like wet, the wetness on the ground. I like it. You can put more or less. Going back to my brush, and I'm doing a little white dot in the eyes, and I'm just gonna play with it a little bit and go back to black just to give a little bit of a light hint of white in her eyes. I'm not gonna leave it like that. I'm actually gonna add a little bit more black. Now with the red, I'm just doing a soft blush on her cheek. So I just apply the dot and then I'm just kind of smoothing it out with my finger. Going back with more opaque white. And it got mixed with some red, so I ended up with pink. Going back to white. It's kind of a blend of different colors. I'm making the lips a little bit bigger. And as you can see, the white in her eyes, it's very faint. It's not like a dot. I added paint and then just added the black on top just to give it a nice smooth look. So I made her lips a little bigger with a little white touch. And that is the last step. I'm really happy how it turned out. I hope you had fun creating this painting with me today. Join me for my next tutorial next week. Until then, stay creative and remember, creativity is within you. Bye for now. If you liked my video, please give it a thumbs up. Connect with me on Twitter and Instagram at paintwithnat. NAT. Feel free to watch some videos, what YouTube recommends on the left. And until my next video, stay creative and don't forget to subscribe. Bye.